What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Forgotten Jesus podcast. My name is Andrew Bolton. With us today, no surprise, we have Pastor Robbie Galley and his wife, Candy,
Yes.
special guest with us today. Okay, so we did this last episode. I may just keep this going because this is actually a lot of fun. So let me read you another quick message. I don't know how to say your name correctly, so forgive me for messing it up. I'm going to say Marian, I don't know. Hello.
Marian.
Marin.
Okay.
But from
Marin.
Croatia.
Marin.
So Marin.
From Croatia.
From Croatia. Okay, hello. I just want to say a quick thank you for this podcast. I'm a pastor from Croatia, and I've learned so much, and I've already applied so much of what I have learned from you in my sermons and personal life, especially spending time with the Lord in silence and solitude. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. I want you to know that you are loved from this side of the world.
Aww.
How cool is that? So thank you for joining us. So cool
That's so
and
awesome.
humbling to hear.
I love that.
Just
amazing.
how God is using this
Croatia.
to impact other pastors, which
wonder
means
how
other
they came
families and communities.
We
How
might
they-
have to take a trip to Croatia.
Let's go.
On
How
the
did they-
road. That's going to be our next
the,
thing.
The next thing, the world tour, y'all.
Listen,
There we
Marty
go.
Sullivan, I just saw, is doing the Wild West tour. You
Marty
saw that?
who?
Marty,
We're going to
our buddy.
Croatia.
Yeah. Take that, Marty. We're going to
Marty who?
Croatia. Yeah, we love Marty. No, Marty's doing his tour again. Marty, that was cool, though, how Marty does that to meet different people. But maybe we'll try that one day.
Yeah, we'll try it one
the
day.
summer tour. Okay, let's get back to our John chapter 5.
The
Lots of
retirement tour. Once you retire, Pastor, we'll just take the show on the road.
Hopefully that's not seen, but
No.
we'll retire. We'll take our show on the road. By that time, you'll be 58,
Yeah,
and I'll be 68.
yeah. That's wild.
And Candy will be somewhere in between. Okay, moving on. All right, John chapter 5, we're talking about this man who was disabled. We read about how Jesus asked the man, are you sure that you want to be saved? And I think there's one more point on that. We did find a clarification from last week. It's both 38 and 40. So the question becomes, which one is it? And for the Hellenistic Greco-Roman mind, it's either or.
Yeah.
But for those of us on this podcast, we know how to think
It's
on.
both and.
Or both.
Hand.
Yeah, they got it. Both hand. On the one hand, on the other hand. So did they wander for 40 years? Of course they did. That's the moment they left Egypt and went into the promised land in the totality of walking. But from the moment they denied or said they can't take the land in Canaan, from the time they left Egypt, after that was a roughly 38 years, because it took a year and a half, 2 years to get there, walk through the Red Sea, wander, go to Mount Sinai, wait, go spy out the land. So both are right, right? So we have a picture of the wandering. The man is a picture of suffering and trials and testing. The point I was going to make is when Jesus says, sir, do you want to be healed? It's kind of like what we should be asking people when they follow Jesus. You know, Jesus always asked people to count the cost.
Good night. And we try to lower the bar as much as we can.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways.
The challenge
I have in the past, forgive me for anybody back then, but literally I've just lowered it. Hey, it made it as easy as possible.
Yeah, you don't have to give up. No, you don't have to deny. No, just come to church, bro. You're good. You know, here's the thing. We have tried to find out the irreducible minimums for the least amount of requirements to get into heaven, so that when the spiritual scanner in the sky scans your barcode, Christianity, according to Dallas Willard, you're in. And that is not the Christianity. See, the thing about Jesus is, you'll notice, whereas we try to lower the bar for people to get in, Jesus always raised the bar. He always raises the bar, right? Hey, I'll follow you. Let me go tell my father bye. No, let the dead bury the dead. What?
I keep laughing because I've realized I do this in some areas, but I haven't done this in talking to people about following Jesus, which I don't know why. But like when adoption comes up, like we have an adopted son, and we won't get into all that story here. He's amazing, I love him. But whenever somebody approaches me about adoption, I'm like, listen, I'm gonna try to talk you into it and out of it at the same time.
Totally.
No,
Like
I think
it
that's
is.
good.
Like, yes, you need to. It's amazing. It's beautiful. On the other hand, it is the hardest thing you may ever do. Yada, yada, yada.
Both ends, yes.
And I may start doing that with the gospel. Like, hey, I'm going to try to talk you into this and out of it at the same time, because it's the most amazing decision you can ever make in your life. But
I love that.
Yes.
You're going to gain all of these things from intimacy with the Lord, but it's going to be, you got to give up everything.
Yeah.
Are you ready to give up everything?
Yeah.
Okay. The response from the man, okay, so here's the deal. Let's go back into the account. So the man is Jesus. Let's pick up, Candy. Let's just read the context so they know.
Okay. Where are we?
The man says, Jesus says, do you want to be healed or made well? Verse 7.
Again? Okay. Sir, the disabled man answered, I have no one to put me into the pool when the water is stirred up, but while I am coming, someone goes down ahead of me. Get up, Jesus told him. Pick up your mat and walk. Instantly, the man got well, picked up his mat, and started to walk. Now that day was the Sabbath. And so the Jews said to the man who had been healed, this is the Sabbath. The law prohibits you from picking up your mat. He replied, the man who made me well told me, pick up your mat and walk. Who is this man who told you, pick up your mat and walk? They asked. But the man who...
By the way, notice how many times you see that phrase, pick up your mat and walk. Pick up your mat and walk.
Yeah.
Okay, keep going.
Who is this man that told you, pick up your mat and walk? They asked. But the man who was healed did not know who it was because Jesus had slipped away into the crowd that was there. After this, Jesus found him in the temple and said to him, see, you are well. Do not sin anymore so that something worse doesn't happen to you.
That's a mic drop moment right there. That's a bomb right there he dropped. We'll get to that in a moment, in a good way, but it's...
The man went and reported to the Jews that it was Jesus who made him well. Therefore, the Jews began persecuting Jesus because he was doing these things on the Sabbath.
On the Sabbath. Okay, a couple things quickly as we go. One of the reasons Jesus says, pick up your mat and walk, is you have to understand, that was a big ask. The man hasn't used his legs in 38 years.
Yeah.
That's a big deal.
Yeah.
Like, get up and walk. The man's like, what? I don't have any muscle tone. And Jesus was saying, no, I want you to demonstrate you're fully healed. Okay.
Yeah.
So the man gets up
Which
and
I
walks.
think he did have muscle tone at this point because he had to feel himself being healed.
Yeah. And it says,
but I mean, before that point, he has no muscle, no tone. Yeah. But after that point, he's back to normal in a sense. He's healed, made fully well. And it would have been very easy for Jesus just to say, go home, leave the mat, get into the crowd and blend in. No, Jesus said, pick up that mat and walk. No, pick up the mat and walk. The guy's like, what? It's the Sabbath. I know, walk.
Yeah.
So when he does that, think of it this way. This is a man who is walking down Main Street in Disneyland in front of everybody with flashing lights and sirens saying, look at me, look at me.
Yeah.
It's a visible sign of healing. And that's why I said Jesus is becoming a little more forthright at this moment to show, okay, this man has been healed, so now he's going to walk.
because he was the only one at that moment carrying anything, correct?
Yes.
So he would have
Nobody
really
else was doing
stuck out
anything
because
resembling work.
Correct. Everybody's just walking, and then all of a sudden you see this guy carrying a big mat
With probably a little pep in his step.
Oh,
Yeah.
for sure. That reminds me. It reminds me of Acts chapter 3. When the man says, do you have gold I can have? And Peter and John said, silver and gold I
do
don't
not
have. But what?
But what I do have, in the name of Jesus,
Of Nazareth.
get up and walk.
Rise up and walk. Very, very similar. And then they said, they took the man by the right hand and raised him up, and immediately his feet and his ankles were made strong. Yeah, so we have this commentary. What's that? So imagine it's like the Transformers in Israel. You know, his body just comes together and he stands up. But then not only is he up walking, this man decides to show us he's not Baptist.
Yeah.
Did you know that?
No, how's that?
Why?
He start drinking? I'm just kidding.
Start dancing.
No, he
Start
started
dancing.
dancing.
Okay.
He started dancing. He did.
Sorry. We can edit that.
Not all Baptists.
No, but here's the
Hey,
funny
dancing,
thing. A
by
couple
the
weeks
way.
ago, I got told by Candy after we left. She didn't like this, but
I like
at the
dancing.
last service,
dancing.
at
Yeah,
the
dancing's
last
fun.
service,
somebody at this
how many
table
people were here
doesn't.
for this 2 weeks ago? You can watch it online. Candy did not like this, but we took the Lord's Supper. The week before Easter.
Oh, I heard all about this.
Yeah, you
What?
heard about
I
this.
heard all about
So,
this. Oh, my goodness.
I don't remember.
Gracious, I heard all about
Yeah,
this.
it was a little inappropriate, but I
Can
thought
we
it was
clip
fun.
it in?
Oh my gosh!
I don't know what this is, but this is not. They got new and old. This actually may be real wine. It's so ferment. No, I'm serious. Look at the top. This may be fermented. I don't know how this guy. I may relapse on that one. But anyway.
It was pretty funny. Chris didn't even know what we're clipping in. So at the last service, Chris, normally when I go up, Robert will give me like the Lord's Supper little cups, and we'll have wafer on one side, grape juice on the other side. And we just made the switch to a new company, which is way better.
It's phenomenal.
Phenomenal, yeah. We used to do the old wafer that would, be.
It felt like one of those styrofoam packing peanuts that you would, the old one.
Yeah.
The old one felt like that. Like, that's what it felt like. This is definitely unleavened.
Yeah, no, seriously. No, it gets even crazier. So for some reason, I did the first few services, I had the new low cup wafer. But for the last service, for some kind of way, I don't even know how I got in there, one of the older ones I walked up with on stage, and I looked at the top where the juice was, and it seemed like this one had been it probably was somewhere hidden in the back for years. I mean, it had molded, and it had like it looked like mold, but it looked like it was all like stained. The top of it was stained, and so I looked at this and I'm like, wait a minute,
Which nobody else sees what you see.
Correct.
Right. They just hear what you say.
They just hear what I say. So I look at this cup and I say to the church, I'm like, wow, I don't think I want to drink that because who knows how long this has been. And so I said, Robert, can you give me the other cup? So Robert's walking up and I said, wow, there's no telling. This is probably fermented. And if I drink this, I may relapse. So
Not funny.
I looked at Candy. She was not.
I was like, that is not funny, hun.
Well, what I meant is it may be real wine and I get send me back in a real.
It's not funny.
It's funny now.
I don't think that's funny at all.
But it really is kind of funny. Okay, so
one of us
we're
don't
not
like
talking
dancing,
about
one of us don't like jokes.
Yes,
okay?
one of us don't like, and one of us don't like, and I like dancing.
No, no, you don't.
I'm playing. Candy loves the dancing. This man gets healed and leaps up and starts dancing around. And who said Baptists? I mean, who said believers don't dance? Right?
Yeah.
This man's dancing. So he's dancing, and then all of a sudden he gets hammered because he's walking with the mat.
Yeah.
And they ask the man, "Why are you breaking the what?"
And by hammered, you mean?
I mean attacked.
Okay.
Okay. Not hammered. I mean they get attacked.
In the context.
No.
I didn't know if you like took the Lord's Supper with
We're
you or
taking
something.
that drinking to the extreme.
Oh,
No,
man.
he wasn't hammered, but he was attacked. That was a Freudian slip. He was attacked for breaking the Sabbath. Now let's just rewind a little bit.
Question.
Okay, I'm gonna answer this, but
Oh, you already know what I'm going to ask?
I don't know.
No,
Is
but
it about
Take a
the
guess.
law? It's about the oral law and the written law. Okay.
I was going to say, it says the Jews. So who is questioning him here? Is it truly the crowd,
that's
or
a
is it
deep
like,
question.
is it?
Yeah, that is a deep question. That's actually a question scholars debate in John.
Are you serious?
Yeah, because John uses idemi or udemi,
okay.
the word for Jews, or to me, I think it is the word for Jews, and it's a broad term. Okay, so I think there are three options for John. There are three ways to use the word Jews. One word, three different options. Ooh. I think one way, I can't remember, I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. One way is just the nation in general.
The crowd.
The crowd, yeah.
Because he's passing all these people, like as he's walking. And so it's
Which I think would be reasonable to
And they're like, what are you
assume
doing?
they would ask.
Yeah,
'Cause nobody
could
else
be.
is doing what he's doing.
Could be,
Right.
yeah. Another option is that it's the Jewish leaders or those who are trying to take him out or attack him,
Okay.
or the religious leaders. And then the third option, I think, is it's the Jewish crowd who are against him. So one is just general crowd.
Who's against who?
Jesus.
But they don't know that Jesus did this
not yet.
at this point.
Right. Well, no, I mean, not against him, but against, they will be against him. So they're not against him now, but they are critical of him is what I meant. So
Yeah.
one is just a general Jewish crowd, just the nation, just the people. One is people who are attacking Jesus, and the third are the religious leader. I think that's the three. If it's not those three, it is three different options. But here, I just think it's in general. They're just questioning. This is a man
Whoa,
walking.
what's going on?
Hey, it's
But-
Passover,
I just find it so interesting that that's the very first question they ask is, like
ask?
why he's carrying the mat instead of
Not,
like,
how
oh
can-
my
like,
gosh,
what happened to you?
You've been laying here. What in the world just happened? But instead they pick up like it's like, why are you carrying the mat? The law prohibits you from doing this.
Okay, that's a great insight because that's the $1 million question.
Well,
It's like they're so programmed for the tradition and the oral laws or whatever.
Well,
Is
here,
it the
okay,
oral?
let me give you a modern insight. We talked about going to the jail last week.
Okay.
One of the things we're seeing at Long Hollow is this revival of people who like us, by the way, not them, us, who are experiencing the grace of God behind bars and then coming to Long Hollow or connecting with us in the podcast. And what's interesting about that is we would think, why isn't every church in America doing this? Why isn't everyone reaching out to those incarcerated? The only difference between them and you know, everybody, John Maxwell says, is one step away from stupid. Excuse the language if you have kids in the car, but one step away from doing something dumb. We're all there. What takes a lifetime to build in a testimony, you can just look at guys who have fallen. In a moment, you could lose it. Okay, here's the thing. But here's the reality. The reason a lot of churches aren't reaching out to the prisons, in my opinion, is because they don't, quote, want those people at their church. But what they don't realize is those people are you, apart from the grace of God, 100%. Right? I mean, everybody's a sinner, needs a Savior, right? The only difference is you looking at their sin different than yours. It's the same thing in God's eyes.
I would say if there's a group of people out there that call themselves a church, but say they don't want certain people at their church, they're not a church.
What are they?
They're just people.
Look at Vivian over here. Vivian's shaking her
Because
head.
the church
I know that.
is the body of Jesus Christ. You see what I'm saying? And if you're meeting in a building and you're calling yourselves a church, but yet you're saying, we don't want you here.
Well, that's the problem
then
with
there's a problem
that's
there.
a problem with religion through the ages.
Well, yeah,
Right?
I'd say this is a great opportunity to, if you're a pastor listening, if you're a church member, you go somewhere else, reflect on how you can be a positive change in this culture in your church. Like, how can we, I mean, again, the only reason I'm not behind bars is because I didn't get caught.
Exactly.
Like, seriously, that could have been me as well.
Yeah, any of us.
We've all done offenses that merit jail time.
Yeah.
Yes.
I know.
Well, and I would also say there are probably a lot of churches out there. Like, we're not the only song and dance ministering to people in prison.
No.
There are tons of people, local churches, small town churches where ministers are going in, they're leading Bible studies and they're meeting with, you see what I'm saying? Like, there are
there's a
lot
difference,
of people that are reaching and trying to minister.
Totally.
What we're hearing is that a lot of people who are writing in never get responses. And so they feel like it's almost one-sided. And we're trying to connect with those people by writing letters, responding, and starting relationships there. You see what I'm saying? And
well, it's one thing to reach out to people in prison or drug addicts, alcoholics. It's another thing to welcome them into your church, okay? Because here's the thing. The illustration I was going to give that would be like this one is, it's somebody comes to our church, let's say your church, tatted up, head to toe, former drug addict, alcoholic. They walk the aisle, let's say if you give an invitation this way, and they say, hey, I've surrendered my life to Jesus. I want to be baptized. Then they go find a place in one of the rows while the service is going on. And the whole time you have an uppity, well-to-do, established family. Like, why is this guy at it? Why is he sitting?
That's my seat.
Yeah, why are you
always
here?
sit there. Yeah.
That's what's happening here. This guy just accepted Christ. He's
Right.
given his life to they can't see that. They just want to know, why are they inconvenienced? Why is why doesn't he dress the way he should? Why is he look you see what I'm saying? They miss the point.
judgment, right?
Yeah, well, it could be. Yeah, it is judgment. But here's
Which
the point.
we all fall into.
Right. Okay.
Go
So
ahead.
let's get back to this, because I thought you were going to ask, why are they questioning Jesus about the Sabbath? Because remember, we talked about this a little bit, but I want to revisit this for just a moment. So the question people ask or think wrongly is, the idea is Jesus broke the law. I even heard, there's a popular pastor today, I won't tell you his name, but I've been accused of looking just like him, although he's shorter than I am, a little shorter than me. But we have...
We're going to all but tell you his name. Okay, great.
Right, he has black hair and he preaches that in North Carolina.
Okay, moving on. Okay, come on.
He actually said, it's online. He said this line: Jesus broke the law for love.
Yeah.
That's a clip.
Yeah.
We've seen this clip.
I've seen that clip.
With all due respect, bro, that's not true. There's no way Jesus broke his own law. You misunderstand. I mean, and again, I give you a lot of grace, but you're misunderstanding how the law worked back then.
He broke the oral law.
Yes, there's a difference between.
Maybe that's what he means. How do we know he doesn't mean the oral law?
Well,
We don't know.
I would never say Jesus broke the law.
Yeah.
Never.
I mean, it doesn't
because
sound good,
the
but I'm
average
saying is
person
maybe he
listening
knew it was the
doesn't.
oral law.
Well, here's the thing: how many people outside of this podcast have ever heard there's a written law and an oral law?
Anybody who listens to the Bama podcast.
Yeah, most people
But I'm
wouldn't know
saying
that.
most people outside in churches, they don't know this, is what I'm getting at.
Yes, 100%.
So I would be more clear in my explanation.
Which, let's be honest, he said that to be provocative.
Sure.
He likes to be
To reach
provocative.
people,
and
yeah.
get the,
Or to, yeah.
kind of a, what do you call it? Clickbait.
But the actual
Again,
law,
at the end of the day, I would never
But
say.
it's misleading.
It's very misleading. Yes.
okay, but the actual law is to keep the Sabbath or honor the Sabbath.
Keep the Sabbath, okay? Honor your mother and father, keep the Sabbath. Now watch this. The law, so you're probably asking, because people ask me this after, show me in the Bible this oral law. You ready for this, Vivian? You're going to love this. Show me where the Bible says there's an oral law, because I don't know if I've ever heard this or believed this. Go to Mark chapter 7. I'm going to show you this. Jesus is going to call them out for calling him out.
Mark
and
7?
saying, yeah.
Okay.
Now he's going to push back on them when they call him out, okay? Mark chapter 7, verse 5, okay?
I've got another one, by the way. Okay, go ahead.
Is it Matthew 15? Because Matthew.
No.
Oh.
But like, if you in the Sermon on the Mount, for instance, what does it mean when it says, "You have heard it was said to our ancestors"? But I tell you.
Yes, totally. That's look at you.
Because we're memorizing that right
Ice
now,
cream
right?
sandwich.
Yeah, get it right.
Randy.
All right.
You have
But
heard
this
it was
one's pretty
said,
specific.
but I tell you.
Yeah, Jesus tells you the name of this law.
Okay,
Okay.
good.
Mark chapter 7, verse 5.
All right. So the Pharisees and the scribes asked him, "Why don't your disciples live according to the tradition of the elders?"
Bingo. Underline that phrase. Tradition of the elders. Law, oral law. Write it down, underline it. Instead,
Of eating bread with ceremonially unclean hands.
he answered them.
Isaiah prophesied correctly about you hypocrites, as it is written, "This people honors me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. They worship me in vain, teaching as doctrines human commands."
I mean, this is so simple. This is so easy to see what he's saying. Keep going. It keeps going, though.
Abandoning the command of God,
The law
you
of God.
hold on to human tradition.
All right, bingo. There it is right there, all in one verse. What he's saying is there's a law written by God, a command of God, and then there's human tradition. He also said to them, you have a fine way of invalidating God's command in order to set up your own tradition.
Yeah.
Okay? So what Jesus is doing is saying the working on the Sabbath was what I'm breaking is your law that you put in place. Now, you have to understand what was happening back then. They considered working, they answered these questions, and I'm not faulting them for that because they're trying to figure out what is right and what is wrong. So they tried to figure out what considered work on the Sabbath. Okay? What was work on the Sabbath? Okay. And what they decided was that you can only go 1,000 yards total. You could not travel from your home farther than 1,000 yards from your home.
You couldn't even go get water because that was considered work, right? Like draw water.
Well, drawing water was work, but just walking and talking and hanging. Okay. But here's the thing. They came up with a new law on that law and said, however, though, if you travel 1,000 yards and go to someone's home, then you can redefine your home base to start over. Like the reset button in a video, you start over. And if you brought enough food to another place on Friday, then that place was now within your 1,000-yard barrier where you could reestablish your residence. You could then leave that home, walk to another home. So it kind of
like
got
a game.
It got really wacky, right? If you go to Jerusalem to this day, we stay at the David Citadel Hotel in Jerusalem.
How's the Jerusalem chicken in Jerusalem?
I don't think I've ever had the Jerusalem. I've had it at Chef's Market, though. Yeah, Chef's Market has a good Jerusalem chicken.
I'm hungry all of a sudden.
But right now in Israel, if you go, there is a Torah observant elevator.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
It doesn't work on Sundays.
No, it works.
No, it works.
It's just pre-programmed.
Here's how it works.
Yeah.
You
So you
get in
don't
the
touch the
elevator,
buttons.
it stops at every floor. You can't hit a button. It doesn't matter. The buttons don't work. It stops at every floor. And the problem with the Citadel Hotel, it's like 15, 20 floors.
Yeah.
Maybe more. It's a long ride if you're up top.
So they're saying pushing of the button is the work.
It's work.
Why? Because when you press the button, it's a switch, and a switch causes a spark, and a
Electricity.
spark is considered fire, and you shouldn't make a fire on the Sabbath.
Wow.
It gets even better.
Yeah.
Or crazier. The Jews will actually tear off the Charmin. Charmin Ultra.
Some good stuff.
The Charmin. Yeah, they would tear off the paint.
Love Charmin. You got to have a good quality toilet paper.
No,
The
you
dung
do have-
gate.
You don't, from the dung gate, yeah, not to be confused.
My daddy
Okay.
loves Charmin.
Yeah.
That's why I like it.
Okay. Sorry. I
love it,
my
dude.
bad. That was my
Some
bad.
Jews actually tear the toilet paper and stack it. Why?
Yeah.
Because you can't rip.
Were
or
you
tape-
actually talking about toilet paper?
No, I am talking about.
Oh,
toilet.
I thought- yeah.
You thought I was joking. No.
Yeah.
Jews on Friday will take time
Pre-tear?
to pre-tear because
Yeah.
you can't tear. you're either wiping with the whole roll,
Yeah.
or you're not, right? And
Yeah.
so they would tear off the Charmin because you can't tear on or rip on the Sabbath because that's
Back then,
work.
they wouldn't have had Charmin, though.
No, they wouldn't have, but they would have. Again,
have
no, I'm talking about
hand.
today. I'm talking about today.
Anyways,
they do this. Okay, so these rules and regulations were what they call putting a fence around the Torah. Now, I'm going to give you a pop quiz to the Old Testament.
Yeah.
Okay.
Where do we find a fence being put around the Torah or the law?
The tabernacle?
Even further back. Go back even further.
Don't tell us.
Okay.
Well,
The
that was my
fence?
guess. That was legit.
Yeah, that was-
guess. I promise you, that's what I was thinking.
I don't know
Okay,
whether
wait.
to believe you or not.
No, it was.
Okay.
The
The Garden of
Ark
Eden.
of the Covenant?
Garden of Eden, baby.
Boom! You got it.
Look at you.
I need one of those buttons.
Okay, here's the deal. The Garden of Eden,
Okay.
because you got to think, God says one command. This is a perfect example of oral, the contrast between what did God really say and what
Yeah.
did people say. God says, don't eat of the tree of the garden, okay?
Okay.
Satan comes along and says, didn't God say, this is crazy, don't what? Don't eat of the tree of the garden, nor
Touch it.
Yeah.
or look at it.
Yeah.
Remember, he says, don't touch.
Oh, Eve says touch it then.
Yeah, don't
Somebody
touch
says
it.
touch it too. Okay.
Yeah, touch it or look at it. I think let's go to Genesis. Look what does the serpent say, just so we clarify, so we know.
Genesis.
What's that old dragon
Genesis
say?
3. Genesis 3.
You're going to slither on your belly for the rest of your life.
Yeah, go to Genesis 3. And we learned
All
from
right.
Elias a few weeks ago, it was a serpent. Could have been a dragon.
Could have been a dragon.
What verse, hun?
I told
Genesis
Blaze that
chapter
this weekend.
3.
That was a really fun
He
conversation.
loved that, huh? Dad,
Yeah.
what does a dragon look like?
Okay.
Snake with
Satan,
wings.
this is what happens. In
Or eat it
chapter
or
3,
touch
verse
or
1.
eat it or touch it.
Did God really say you can't eat from any tree in the garden? The woman said to the serpent, we may eat the fruit from the trees in the garden, but about the fruit of the tree in the middle of the garden, God said, you must not eat it or touch it, or you will die.
Okay,
So,
so-
Eve's the one who says, touch.
eat or touch. Okay,
He
so
says eat.
okay, so here's the question. Did God say not to touch the fruit?
Well, I would say
Well,
probably
you
not,
could
but we
go
don't
back
really
and
know.
No, you can see what God said, because God tells us that God says, oh no, you will eat it or touch it. No, wait, hold on, I'm getting confused. The woman said to the serpent, but oh no, that's right. God just said, don't eat of the fruit. Okay, I'm confusing myself. Eve says, no, God says, don't eat it or touch it. That's not what God said.
Yeah.
So what Eve, the rabbi said, what Eve was doing there is fencing the Torah, fencing the word to protect. Meaning this, okay, when you put a fence up to protect yourself from breaking the law, and they had good intentions with this, I get it. What they said is, so that I don't commit adultery, okay, let's use this example, then I'm not going to look at porn. Okay, so the fence, it basically you're saying, and then I'm not going to look at porn, then I won't even have a computer. Let's back it up. And then because if I have a computer, then I can get porn. If I look at porn, it will lead me to adult. But basically, you see the idea?
Yeah.
So they're putting fences to protect them. So if they break the computer, I get a computer fence, then that's another fence to protect you from breaking the
Yeah.
law.
Yeah.
But the problem was,
It's kind of like those packages, like if you wrap a box inside a box inside a box inside a box. You know what I mean? Like to like.
It's
and
a
it's like the
little dolls, the Russian dolls that they
Yeah.
get
yeah they go
smaller.
open and
Yeah,
close.
exactly. The middle doll's the sin, and that's a great illustration. So look at her. You protect from the center, and so what happens is you put fences. Now it seems like a great idea. Why would you not want to do it? Here's what Jesus says: you have done so many of those, put so many fences up, you don't even know the point of the law anymore. That's why he says your heart is far from me. You do what you're supposed to do,
Yeah.
but the heart is the intention,
Yeah,
the
that's good.
reason is you've forgotten the reason.
Yeah.
And what Jesus is pushing back on here, if we go back to the text, is you guys are criticizing me for healing a man, and you're missing the whole point because your rules and regulations won't let you appreciate the healing.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
And so it got really wacky back then. Now, Jesus is within the confines of what he's doing for a couple reasons, okay? Even if he does break the oral law, he still was right. Here's why. According to the rabbis, negative commandments in that culture are to be disregarded when it pertains to a human life. So if a human life was at stake or in danger or threatened, the Sabbath laws could be suspended, okay? Now, we know that because we see this text that says if a donkey falls in a pit,
Yeah.
You can rescue the pit, okay? Even though you don't have to wait till tomorrow because compassion takes over. They also said that positive commandments overrule the negative ones. For example, what do you do with a child who was born 8 days before the Sabbath? Do you circumcise them on the 8th day, or do you obey the Sabbath? And the answer is you circumcise them on the 8th day. The positive circumcision overrides the negative Sabbath. Now, I found this peculiar story in Israel. This is crazy. Y'all going to love this. But there was a situation in Israel where a woman fell into a pit on the Sabbath.
Wow.
Jesus.
Okay. Hasidic Jews would not, no, I think she just fell in the pit in general. I said Sabbath, but she fell in the pit. Now, Hasidic Jews, which are Torah observant, very strict Jews, are prohibited, according to the oral law, from touching a woman other than their wife.
Yeah.
So what happened was there was a long debate that took place as this woman is in this pit, holding on, begging for her life, with a bunch of men standing, typical Jewish men, standing around a pit, trying to debate over what they should do. And after some time, they said, we can't help this one. I can't touch this woman. Finally, compassion overrode the situation, and someone said, I'll reach down and rescue the woman. That's how bizarre it can get with the commands. And what God is saying is this: you guys are so caught up in ritualistic routine, you have missed the heart of what the law is about. Relationship. Yeah. It's about a relationship with God. God wants to set you apart from the world so he can have a relationship with you. And then we get to the final part of the passage, which is pretty fascinating. After the man is healed, Jesus meets him in the courtyard after, and he says to the man, hey, it's me, basically. The guy's like, wow, awesome.
Which is Jesus pursuing him again.
Right, Jesus found him.
Because this guy had no idea who Jesus was.
In the temple.
That's another good point. That's another good point. Jesus pursues him twice. And notice what Jesus tells the man. He says to the man, look what he says.
See, you are well.
Yes.
Do not sin anymore so that something worse doesn't happen to you.
Okay, as we bring this to a close, what does that mean? See that you don't sin no more. Anymore, so that something worse doesn't happen to you. Yeah. We may have touched on this some, but we talked about how there are some sicknesses that lead to, or there are some sins that lead to sickness. Yeah. Not all, I would say. Don't get into that category. There's a new movement of deliverance ministry. I was watching something the other day that they believe this was a guy in the teenage demon. You can go watch this online. It's a father with his girl and 2 other girls who are the teenage demon slayers. Go look this up. They travel the country, and the girls hold
Teenage Mutant
Ninja Slayers. Yeah, in a sense, it's bizarre to me. But these 18, 19-year-old girls are traveling around with this man who's arguably not legitimate and not.
This is their dad or no?
One girl's dad and the other 2 twins, or not his dad.
Friends,
maybe the twins' dad. I don't remember. But it was these teenage girls. It's a marketing thing. Yeah. This guy's been found out to be taking money. Yeah, he's a fraud. He's a fraud. I think that's what they're saying. All about money. But anyway, here's the point. They're traveling around, and he believes every single drug addiction, every single illness is the result of demonic oppression. So they're out casting out all of these demons and issues that are happening. Okay, so sorry. So the question is every sickness the result of sin? No, I don't think so. No. Is it the result of the fall? Yes. Yeah. Eventually, the sin of man. Yeah. But is the reason you're sick right now because you're sinning? Probably not. Maybe. Right. Who knows? Maybe so. Maybe not. But here's the thing. Yeah. It could be. And this is what bothers people, because people say, what do you mean? There are some people who are sick right now as a result of unconfessed sin in their life. Or sin in their life. And we know this a couple places in the Bible. 1 Corinthians 11, Paul's talking about the Lord's Supper, and he says some of you have gotten even sick and even fallen asleep or died because of the sin in your life. So we see that. That's why Paul says, don't take the Lord's Supper in vain. You don't realize what you're doing. 1 John 5:16 talks about the sin that leads to death. Not all sin leads to death, John says, but there are some that actually lead to death. And we can't prove this.
You're talking about physical death?
Yes. Okay, we can't prove this. I can't prove this, but I've known of people, I know you have, that have died prematurely. And you wonder, man, were they in sin? Were they living a life where, and what the situation there is, and I preached a sermon on this, the sin that leads to death. Here's what I said. Some people, believers now, God basically says, because you're going to stay It would be worse for you to stay and drag my name through the mud. More, I'm going to take you home prematurely for your testimony and my glory.
Wow.
It's crazy to think about, but there are cases of this. I'll give you an example. Ananias and Sapphira in Acts chapter 5. It was their sin of lying about putting all the money into the temple treasury or the traveling treasury back then that caused them the sin. And when his wife comes, it says, did you keep the money? No, we gave it all. Immediately, she fell down at his feet and breathed her last breath, and she died. It was a result of lying or sinning. However, so some sin does lead to sickness. However, God uses illness and disease and sickness to display his glory. We know this from John chapter 9, obviously, is the big one. You know, why is this man born blind, Jesus? Did he sin or his parents? Which we'll get to that. It's a fascinating insight. But Jesus says, no. The reason this man's blind is why?
So that God's glory can be made known.
Yes. What is the other passage in John where the same exact thing is said? Why is Lazarus dead? Why did you wait? He could have come quickly. Why did you wait? Jesus said, this illness does not lead to death. It's for the glory of God, so that the Son of God may be glorified through it. So why did Jesus single this man out by the pool? You ever thought that?
Maybe it was a warning just for the future.
Well, out of all the people.
Yes. Possibly because this man had an open sin that people believed led to his illness. Okay, maybe, possibly. And I say possibly because that's the thing Jesus calls out. When he meets the man again, think about it.
Do you want to be healed?
Do you want to be healed? And then he says, go and sin no more, bro.
Yeah.
Probably don't say bro. Go and sin no more, brother, son. Go and sin no more because it'll happen something worse to you. You know this as well as I do. Sin has a way of intensifying over time.
Yeah.
What starts as an inconspicuous small thing over time can actually grow. I mean, an example would be if a person who's married cheats on their wife through adultery, then they may come down with a sexually transmitted disease, God forbid, and then that sin can be passed on to, and so you see how this sin can one sin, I'm not hurting anybody. No, you're hurting everybody. Yeah. Last night at the prison, and I'll close with this, at the jail, Jesus said, or at the jail, Danny, our prison pastor, local pastor over the jail recovery, got up and he said, how many of you guys in here, there's about 100 and something guys in the room. He said, how many of you guys in here are first timers? And guess how many hands out of the 100 plus guys in the room went up? 6 or 7.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
6 or 7.
First time
ever.
Wow.
He said, the rest of you guys, I've seen you. He said, I've seen you in here for 18 years. He put one guy up. 18 years I've seen you, off and on. This guy, 15 years I've seen you, back and forth. And his point was, out of the men in that room, I think there were about 130 men, roughly, or 110, 120 men. Because we're supposed to have 130, I think 110 showed up. What he was getting at was, unless something changes, nothing changes, guys. And you just keep going back, and it keeps getting worse. It's intensified. Now it's longer stays and longer issues. It's interesting how Jesus ends this thing, and he doesn't say, our Father. Jesus says in verse 17, and we'll get to this next week, he says, my Father is working.
Yeah.
And it's a fascinating concept that Jesus is going to bring us into this intimate relationship with the Father. Yeah. We'll pick that up next week, and we're almost done with season 6. Can you believe it?
Wow.
And then we're going to put a period on season 6.
Yeah.
And season 7's going to start with the Sermon on the Mount. We are finally getting there.
Listen,
to the bread and butter.
We're finally getting into the Word. It's crazy.
Until the Word gets into you.
Yeah. Speaking of, you can buy that on the back of a shirt. Long All About Store. So.
Shameless plug. Yeah.
Shameless plug.
Really.
All seriousness though, like just so you know, we don't like get any money from the merch.
No.
Like literally, like we sell it at as cost as we can, so that you guys can.
We make no money off that.
Yeah, none whatsoever.
Or a book or anything.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. If so, Share it with a friend. Connect with us on social media at The Forgotten Jesus. Leave us a review.
Please leave a review.
And
For those who
get
haven't.
excited for the live episode. I'm just going to speak it into
Yeah, let's
existence.
do it.
Pastor.
Yeah, let's do it.
I'm going to make
We'll
it
let
happen.
you know.
So,
We'll let you know.
Yeah, we'll let you. Okay, to be determined. Hope you enjoyed this episode. We'll see you on the next one.